This is the Music Maestro podcast, a behind-the-scenes look at the people shaping the sound and business of music today. Today's guest is Fraser T Smith, a Grammy-winning producer, songwriter and musician who's written over 2,500 songs, amassed billions of streams and worked with artists including Adele, Stormzy, Dave, Craig David, Raye and many more, delivering global hits, multiple number ones, and a career that cuts across everything from pop to grime. Beyond the records, Fraser is helping redefine what it means to be a producer today, launching the Future Producer Academy, championing creators and pushing for a more human, sustainable music industry. This is Fraser T Smith. Fraser, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me on. Great to be here.
I said to you before we started, you've been on my list of people that I've wanted to have on here for a long time. So it's great to have you finally sat opposite me. You've got a hell of a career. And so I've got quite a lot of questions and I'm going to try and get through as many as I can. But there's a summary in front of me here. And obviously the intro that I just did sort of talks about some of your achievements. But I'm looking at awards with Grammy Awards and Ivan Novello Awards last year, the BMI President's Award, Brit Award, Mobile Award. Is that correct?
For, records that I've been involved in. Yeah.
You must look at your career and think, I've absolutely smashed it.
I mean, I think the opposite, to be fair. I mean, I'm very grateful for everything, but I'm not looking around at the awards too much as great as they are. You know, I think that I'm all about like the next thing, whilst, you know, again, the pausing to reflect sometimes, and it does feel quite surreal when you say these things, because I'm just, as we talked about, you know, I'm just a humble musician from Marlow that loves music, and I've worked incredibly hard over this long period of time, and seen so many artists that I've worked with flourish. You know, I've worked with lots of artists that have been at the start of their career, such as Raye and Dave and Stormzy, and even Adele. When Adele came in to work on 21, you know, she only had the album 19. And so that was relatively at the start of Adele's, you know, amazing career. So, yeah, I mean, it's all relative as well. You know, when you look at, you know, heroes of mine like Rick Rubin and Quincy Jones, you think, well, you know, I've been fortunate. I've worked hard, but there's still lots of work to be done, and that's the most important thing for me. You know. Well.
So one of my initial questions was like, when you have all of these achievements, and there are a lot of them, as humble as you are, what is success to you nowadays?
I think success to me is the relationship that I have with Sarah, my wife, who you met earlier, our daughter, the people that work with us, the artists that work with us, the Future Producer Academy, to feel that I'm engaged with the next generation of incredible producers and are able to pass on lots of the things that I've learned and mentor all of them and provide opportunities for them. It's my level of health, my level of energy that I feel at 54, you know, being able to work the long hours and still feel that I'm on the pitch contributing in this very competitive playing field that is music. All of these things, you know, the friends that we have, it's very balanced. Yeah. Very balanced approach.
Has that changed for you, like, over the years?
I think there's definitely, I mean, I say it's balanced. I'm a complete workaholic and often work like 16-hour days. Wow. But I try and keep that balance at the front of my mind. I've seen a lot of people with way more Grammys than me that have focused solely on that and maybe not looked after themselves, so run into major sort of health issues at a certain age, or had like a string of divorces and not maybe found like their soulmate and all of these kind of things, which is yeah, it's great on one hand, but then a shame in another. And I think that, yeah, definition of true success for me is where you have this this rounded
totally.
level. So
Again, when we're looking at achievements, even last year, 2025, you had the Concord Publishing deal, you had the BMI London Award, you launched the Future Producer Academy. Like, you're still achieving year on year. So I guess my question is, how are you going to top that in 2026?
I set big goals, whilst also, I mean, a lot of people talk about living in the present.
Yeah,
because there's a sort of buzz concept. But I did have a bit of an epiphany where I thought, all these goals are great, but actually, a successful life is just a combination of great days, And if you're feeling creative and you're being kind and you're helping people out and you're being of service, which to me is the role of a producer. Then you're looking after yourself and you're having fun, then it's going to be a great life, no matter what awards you win or what awards you don't.
So again, I was saying to you before we started, like, I remember first hearing your name because I had a friend who was being taught guitar by you, and he would rave about the fact that you were Craig David's guitarist. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So
didn't rave about the fact that I was a good teacher.
No, he did.
I'm just trying to remember if I was a good teacher or not, or whether.
But what I always remember is, I think, well, actually, it was I listened to a bit of the Money Trench podcast, and so am I right in thinking it was 1999 you were introduced to Craig?
Yeah.
But it came at a point where you were thinking of perhaps giving up.
Well, I wasn't giving up music. I was in a sort of transitional period where the guitar was. I'd done a lot of things on guitar, and I knew that I had a burning desire to be a producer. So I was making that transition into production. So I've never, wanted to give up. There's been some tough times where I've considered maybe doing other things, but at that particular point, I was teaching guitar. And I was playing in different bands, and I was thinking, okay, this is great. Spent quite a few years on the road and doing different gigs all over the country and all over the world. And I thought, okay, now's the time to be a producer. And then had a little teaching studio in Maidenhead, and a manager who managed lots of artists called Paul Widger came in and knocked on the door and said, look, if you've got 5 minutes, I've got this amazing artist that I want you to meet. And he brought in this young, good-looking artist in an immaculate Adidas Superstar tracksuit with gleaming white out of the box, shell top Adidas trainers, and that was Craig David, and we hit it off. And I think Craig was 17 at the time.
So this is pre-Born to Do It.
Completely, yeah. He gave me a cassette with Walking Away, 7 Days, and Rendezvous, and Fill Me In, and Rewind, and I thought. The fusion, because I was aware of garage, because I was DJing at that point with my friends.
What were you DJing?
What tunes? Breakbeat.
Wow.
Kind of tunes. So like new school breaks.
Yeah.
And but getting into garage as well.
Okay.
And then so to hear this fusion of guitar, which was obviously like my world, but with beats, and to see what Craig was doing with Mark Hill was like incredible. And I just thought I'll. Whatever it takes, I want to work with Craig. So, and that led me off in some ways the production path for the time that I was working with Craig, but it also, we produced together and we wrote songs together. So it actually, in working with Craig as a guitar player, it furthered my production. Not that I was doing it for that, but just as a consequence, it really helped me and enabled me to travel with him and like forged a friendship, a creative friendship that's lasted, will last a lifetime.
Am I right in thinking he was best man at your wedding?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, he's one of my closest friends.
Amazing.
Great guy.
Songwriter, producer. I remember again hearing that when there was a point where you didn't even know that producers existed or that they had so I think while this might sound obvious, it would be great to kind of lay out what is the actual difference between a songwriter and a producer, and is there crossover?
Well, there's huge crossover. You're in the creative process together with an artist, and you're serving the artist and helping them realize their vision from a song and a sonic point of view. So the song really focusing on lyrics and melodies and chords, whereas the production focusing on the overall sonics, whatever that needs to be. So I still think, I mean, the role of a producer to me is being of service to the artist in the goal of realizing their vision sonically and emotionally. So I still haven't got a clear definition of what that is, because I think are best placed by being very fluid. You know, I was in with an amazing DJ and artist called Chris Lake yesterday, who's incredible creator.
Fisher, yeah.
And I really didn't know what the brief was. You know, in the end, it turned into us going backwards and forwards, and me playing a lot of guitar and me playing drums, and Chris jumping on the drums, us both jumping on piano, and it was a very we were complementing each other really well. I'm a big fan of his work.
Yeah.
But in that instance, very different from a new artist that's coming through that just might need nurturing, and very different kind of dynamic.
Yeah.
And or there may be an artist that wants you to take the overview of their record and to steer the overall production of the sound of a body of work.
So, I mean, if we were to take someone that perhaps doesn't work in the industry, likes music, but maybe just is a lean back listener, let's say, I always think that their perception of a songwriter is that person that maybe writes those lyrics, and then the producer is the one that's producing the actual music on the buttons, basically. So, what I'm trying to get at is there a distinct difference between the two, that how you can separate them cleanly?
I mean, it's the lines are very blurred, because I mean, if you come up with chords within a production, then you are songwriting.
Yeah.
I think if you're all in the room at the same time at the beginning of the outset, and the intention is we're all writing a song together, then you're all writing a song together. You know, and that should be like an equal division, because you've all started with nothing and you've ended up with something together. And I think that people's contribution, you know, in an old school way would be like, well, you'd have to sort of separate the music from the melody to the lyrics, and that would be this. But I mean, now, like, there can be, you know, a chord with a certain sound that defines a record. And so I think in a modern way of looking at things, you know, again, it's very fluid. But I think that a producer tends, in my world anyway, to be someone that helps steer the ship. That, without being anything like a dictator, but is there making sure that they understand the brief of the artist and helping everyone realize that, making sure that the environment's right, making sure that the artist is in the right space to create. Like, are they hungry? They're thirsty. Do they want a cup of tea? It's fine to be the tea boy, you know, if that's what it takes, if the artist is in a zone. But then for me, I want to be versatile, so I want to be able to create a beat if they need a beat, or help with lyrics, or help with melody, or it's a very open-ended situation. But I think that's what keeps me, through working in different genres as well, keeps me hungry for it.
How long have you been producing?
A long time. So I'll say, I mean, I used to produce demos when I was 14, so 40 years. If from that perspective, I guess it is production, isn't it? On a 4-track.
Okay, so what about, like, professionally? Like, as in, how long have you been paid for the role of being a producer?
25.
In that 25 years, how have you seen the role of being a producer evolve?
Do you mean my role or?
I think, well, yes, your role, but I guess I am talking broadly in the role of a producer. How has that changed in the last 20, 25 years in terms of what they do, or has it not changed?
I think the big thing that I've observed from a business point of view is that when I first started, you had these little compartments which were songwriter, producer, programmer, mixer, mastering engineer. And I think I was within the first wave of producers who were like, maybe felt a bit unsettled by the tracks being sent off to a mixer and then the label sort of deciding whether the mix was right. It used to be like that a lot, and especially when you were starting, you didn't get much of a say. Now I have amazing relationships with amazing mix engineers like Wes Clark and Spike Stent and Manny Marroquin, Phil Tan. Like, I'm very lucky to have these close relationships. But I mix a lot of my own stuff because I taught myself to mix in the early days, and consequently thought, well, if I can mix, I can probably bring it over the line in the mastering capacity, as much as I always use amazing mastering engineers like Matt Colt and the Metropolis to master records. But you understand the process from start to finish. And I think so it's less, because don't forget I said a producer would have a programmer. So like it was quite boxed off, where the producer would sort of come in and lots of things would be happening. The producer would organise the musicians, but there'd be a sort of team of people around him, a bit more like a modern day film director in a sort of blockbuster sense. Whereas I think now, as producers, I work with a team because it means that I can be more present for the artist. So I work with great engineers, but you are programming, you're mixing, you're potentially mastering, you're bringing a lot of things to the table. So I think the skill set of the sort of all-in-one DIY producer has been the big change.
Yeah.
But then I think the changes over the years for me, I've just put myself in different positions with different artists in order to grow and to have great experience of working with brilliant people. And I think that just the understanding of how much help artists want at any particular time is important. You know, if you get in with a band like Kasabian or Snow Patrol, who I've been in with, they're very self-contained and very able and incredibly creative and talented. And so you have to question what your role is, where often I'm a musician, so I love playing on my records and I love doing everything on them because it's just, I find that fun. But with a band like Snow Patrol, everyone can play. We'll work with amazing drummer Ash Sohn and bass player Ben Epstein to work on the records. So my role is really just making sure everyone's happy and making sure that my engineers are happy and we're interfacing right between the band. It's more of a, I wouldn't say esoteric, but it's about holding space and listening and just making the right, almost like a chess player. You're you're still steering the ship, but you're just making sure that it's smooth rather than getting in anyone's way.
Yeah. Amazing insight. I wanna touch on a particular year, 2011. Has to be one of your highlight achievements, and I know it's something you've probably spoken a lot about, but you co-wrote and produced Adele, Set Fire to the Rain. How did that come about?
It came about from, I think Adele's manager, Jonathan, like hearing some of the stuff that I was doing. I think after 19, Adele wanted to work with some new people. And so we did, we put a week together in the studio. And I just worked on an album by an amazing artist called Claire Maguire that had come out. And I developed my sound, I think, from as consciously from working on a lot of records in the sort of grime and UK rap space into adding more. I moved into a studio with a live room, so I was able to record instruments, and I was working with an amazing engineer called Beatrice Artola, and we were refining the drum sound in the studio and bringing lots of different musicians in. So I felt that there was a lot of piano that I was playing on Claire Maguire's record as well. So we just developed these relationships with great musicians and with the studio and the sonics, and so sort of well primed at that point for Adele to come in, I guess. And we wrote 3 songs within the week, and the last song that we wrote was Set Fire to the Rain. It started off from the piano, and Adele was singing this amazing melody, and came up, I seem to remember pretty quickly with the concept, which was mind-blowing. But then we weren't getting the pre-chorus, and Adele was going round and round it and didn't feel happy. And then I think we finished the session on the first day of writing it, and then went back in on the second day, and it was feeling, sometimes with great songs, you not to be negative, but you can sometimes feel like they're slipping away from you, you know. And when you've got a great, amazing chorus like that and amazing verses, you're just thinking, but without this pre-chorus, it's going nowhere. So Adele went round and round and round, trying and finally came up with that section. And yeah, I remember clearly that at the end of that day, we put it down, and it was pretty much the vocal that you hear on the record. And I remember just feeling like every hair on my body sort of standing up at that point, and just feeling an emotional connection from Adele's voice to the music that I hadn't really felt before. As much as I'd worked with amazing singers, but to feel that level of emotion and soul coming through the mic was an incredible moment.
When you're in that moment, and the hairs on end stuff is probably more an appreciation for how amazing the record is than anything else, I imagine. But are you listening to that and thinking, this is an absolute monster of a tune? This is going to be as big as it was?
I never think this is going to be as big, because I think that once the song leaves the studio, then you have no power over it. So you have to set it free, and whatever it does, you know. But I never want to sound like conceited when I say that big songs that I've been part of, I think are big songs, because I think the caveat I always say is that I've written so many songs that I think aren't going to be that big. We said about songwriting earlier, and the fact that, you know, I've written 2,500 songs, but the reality is that 300 of those 2,500 have been released. So there's 2,200 songs sat on my Dropbox, which are never going to see the light of day unless, you know, we go into some of them and we let the artists hear them. But the reality is that's a big amount of songs where you're kind of like, this is not quite right. I mean, at the point I was thinking, you know, you always see artists as to where they are in their careers. And I was thinking that after the Saturday Night Live performance with Chasing Pavements, that Adele had had that incredible moment, and was on this just incredible trajectory. And I thought, seeing the look in her eyes, you know, the fire behind her musicality and her ambition, I felt, given the right songs, it's going to really go well for her, and and it did.
Yeah, and it is an absolute monster of a tune. I mean, I was looking on Spotify earlier, and I don't know what it is across the other streaming services, but I do know how many streams that song's got.
I don't know.
Well, certainly, it was definitely over 2 billion on Spotify.
Was it?
God knows what it is on the other platforms. But you mentioned, it's an amazing story that. You mentioned the grime and the UK rap thing there, and that's actually leads me on to the next question, because I'm really intrigued to know how you go for it. You've worked with such a diverse range of genres, and you're very deeply connected to grime and UK rap. Like, how do you, and maybe this is coming from the garage link, because grime was sort of the after garage, but how did you come about to be getting so involved in that sound?
Well, I think having said to Craig after working with him for 5 years, look, I love working with you, and obviously, you know, value our friendship deeply, but there has to come a point where I come off the road and get into the studio and really focus on my career as a producer, which Craig fully understood, and said, look, you know, back you fully in doing that. Then I worked with Plan B on his first record, so 'cause that was more like of a rap record. Who needs actions when you've got words? And then I got introduced to Kano by a friend of mine called Richard Thomas, who is Kano's manager, and Kano was looking to come in to produce a guitar track, because Richard knew me as a guitar player but knew that I produced. So Kane and I immediately hit it off, and we were talking about, I didn't know what grime was at the time. You know, there wasn't much grime circulating. Like, it wasn't like online wasn't in the early 2000s. It wasn't like online today, you know.
Yeah.
So I said, well, like, show me what we talked about it, and we talked about the garage references and the R&B references and like the rap references. So I kind of was understanding it, and I said, well, look, here's an Akai MPC drum machine with the pads with some sounds on it. Why don't you just tap out the rhythm? And I grabbed a guitar and started playing a riff, and Kane seemed to like it, and we must have jammed around this for like 2 or 3 hours, and it became the song "Typical Me," which is one of Kane's early singles, and we just kept writing like that, like jamming, and Kane was on the MPC, and I guess that took me into sort of different realms where I was then working. Well, Getz was on that tune, and then I started working with Getz, and then another friend of theirs called Demon, and Danger, and just different artists. And I've always loved rap music, you know, and I just felt that like there was always something unexpected about grime music. It was just so free. Like you could bring like a classical sample to the table, like in Signs in Life with Kane, or you could write like a piano ballad, or it was just very open.
Yeah.
You know, I've been a big fan of rap music over the years, you know, from like Public Enemy days, you know, when I just felt like the power of sort of social conscience as well reach out in music, which really affected me as a very young, like 14-year-old or something, and just really have always gravitated towards that. But it, you know, the scene came and went, was obviously had huge success, and then was slightly overexposed, I guess, which is what happens in scenes, and then went underground again, and then was a period after Set Fire to the Rain where at that point to be honest, I didn't really know what my future was as a producer. I was wanting to learn, so I was just working with lots of different people and just working out what was going on. The music industry was in an interesting place because MP3s were dominating, so the record companies were working out what the landscape was, but DJ culture had really come in heavily. So for a producer, more of a traditional producer, I guess, like me, where did I fit into that sort of landscape? So I got speaking to Kano again, and this is after Kano had a bit of time out, and he said, look, I want to write a really personal record, which turned into Made in the Manor. And I think it was sort of groundbreaking record in terms of the emotional, sonic content, but also like Kane's willingness to be very open and very frank about his emotions. It's a very tender record, as well as exciting moments, and obviously his bars in that are incredible as usual. But then that caught the attention of Stormzy, and then some friends of mine Jack and Benny, who were managing Dave, brought Dave in. This is around 2016. And so I could feel like this resurgence of UK grime stroke UK rap, and that's where like the journey kicked off again.
Yeah, it's amazing. Because Funky Friday you were heavily involved in this?
I was involved in that, yeah.
When you're involved in a scene like a grime, and it has always had a very raw underground sound that seems to translate to the mainstream, how invested do you have to become in that scene? So let's take grime as an example. Are you just doing what feels right to you, or are you studying this genre of music before you step into the studio with these artists?
Well, I'm studying it a lot because I love the scene. Like I love like those early videos, like the all of the producers associated with like all of those artists. I'm a complete student of what's going on, but I was also very careful, like not to try and appropriate anything, or not to try and sort of take anything that didn't feel my own. I mean, my view on it has always been there to help elevate through my skill set, which is potentially different, and my history, which is potentially different, not any better, but different from some of the incredible producers that were and are still working with these amazing artists. So if I had a piano in my studio, or I could play a live guitar rather than reaching for a sample, that could be something different, you know. And the fact that I've spent years recording would mean that the recordings could also sound a certain way. Not to say they would always have to sound lush, but you know, and if Stormzy's vision was to get a choir on Blinded by Your Grace, I'd know who to call, and we could make that happen, you know. And so that was my mission really on.
So let me ask you a question on a side that you may or may not have an opinion on, but there's always a lot of talk about the godfather of grime. What's your opinion?
Godfather of grime.
Who is it?
Well, it's going to have to be Wiley.
I wholeheartedly agree. I'm so glad you said that. Yeah. But it's an interesting one. It's debated about a lot, but I totally agree. So I'm glad you said that. Let's get into, you're a songwriter, you're a producer, you've done 2,500 songs, 300 have been released. It's incredible. You've got all these awards, but you're also an artist under the guise of Future Utopia.
Yeah.
How did that project come about, and I guess why? If you're like, you've got all these plates that you're spinning.
Well, I think the first thing to say, I mean, in my opinion, life is long, you know? Like, when you've been doing it a long time, for me anyway, like, one of my values is progression, you know? And I think with that, sometimes you have to reinvent what it is that you're doing. You have to push yourself, and you have to push yourself out of a relative comfort zone. And I think that having been blessed with the opportunity to have worked with Kane on Made in the Manor, and Stormzy on Gang Signs and Prayer, and Dave on Psychodrama, I felt that I needed to do something which was very different. You know, I'd written across different genres. I've written with bands and solo artists. So I was like, well, how do I do something different? And it came at a point where we were moving out to the country, and I was building a new studio, and I just felt like I wanted to do a project, and I didn't know what that was going to be. I mean, at the beginning, all I had was a title, which was 12 questions, and I wanted to ask these big, deep, far-ranging questions, like what's the cost of freedom? Maybe even like as a Netflix documentary, and just going around, and maybe I wrote the theme music or the incidental music. I didn't know what it was going to be, but as time went on, I thought it'd be great to ask these questions, and then to have the answers set to music, and to have this sort of cinematic experience, and then ask a lot of my friends if they would want to collaborate with me on this record. And that turned into 12 questions. And then Kano, who was on this record, who's a very close friend said, "This is brilliant that you've done this. You're either going to release this," just prior to the release, he said, "You're either going to release this and not want to do it again and just go, that was a great experience, and sort of look back at it fondly, or you'll get the bug." And after we'd released it, I definitely got the bug. Definitely not from an ego point of view, but just from a personal point of view of being able to put something together fully. So to rid myself in this project a little bit of my slight imposter syndrome, which I think is humility, by the way. I think is when you're working with incredible artists, it's sometimes hard to take any praise, because these incredible artists are just so brilliant that you, as I said, my viewpoint is that I'm there to help. And so when it comes to Future Utopia, like, I have to stand up and be counted, because I'm writing the songs, and I'm producing it, and it feels like I can feel very whole with this project, and it's very dear to my heart, as any project is, you know. But ultimately, I'm there, you know, in the corner as the artist goes into the ring. You know, I'm their trainer. I'm holding their hand to the point where they've got to jump, and we know that the parachute's going to open, but they've got to make the jump. Yeah. You know, I'm not making that jump. It's their record at the end of the day. It's not my record. So as much as, you know, whatever my involvement is on that, you know, you have to give that ownership to the artist. Whereas to have my own project and forcing myself to write 100% songs, and forcing myself to grow lyrically and melodically and chordally in a production sense, and also like to do what the hell I want, without having to ask for not permission, but just to do it, to do what flows out is like the greatest gift. And to see people react positively, but also to take feedback and take those knocks, and work with my wife and manager Sarah on that, and Rob at 70 Hertz is huge for us.
But on the, I mean, yeah, it's amazing. I guess it's amazing for you to have that creative outlet. But it's not. I'm right in thinking it's not just you.
No, I have an amazing band with Molly J on vocals, singing backing vocals, and Anthony Sweetsticks Lewis on drums, and we go out as a 3-piece.
So you're performing live?
Yeah. I'm on guitar and vocals, playing keys. Molly is playing keys as well and singing. Sweets on the drums. We have dreams of like making the band bigger, but the economic restrictions are huge. Yeah,
well, let's delve. Why? Let's say, because what we again, this is something we touched on down the pub beforehand. But like, what you're experiencing here is not unfamiliar to a lot of artists out there at the moment. And so, you know, even with someone like yourself, with all the success that you have, to hear that you're perhaps having these economic struggles, like how do artists or breakthrough talent in today's landscape, how do they cut through? How do they survive? What do they need to do?
I mean, I think going back to our conversation, it's about building that audience from the outset. But the financial challenges are real. You know, the first thing to say is that I don't want this to come across as a sob story, because I've been very lucky in having spent a lot of my career working with great artists and working as hard as I could to build my own studio, and so to have things like the luxury of being able to record my albums in my own studio without having to pay for studio time or rent a studio. This isn't a sob story for me, but I feel like because we're in the field now, it's great, because if I can use the platform that I have to help speak out on issues that will affect young artists, and we do see that because of the economic issues and challenges that venues are facing and festivals are facing. the cost of traveling now, post Brexit, for bands is huge, and so it's been well documented across social media. But you have to be at an incredible level to even be breaking even on live. I'm very fortunate in that I have 2 jobs, so I'm working in other areas of the music industry, producing and writing with artists, and to be brutally honest, that a lot of that income comes back and funds what it is that we're doing with Future Utopia, But if you didn't have that other source of income, I don't know how you do it. It's incredibly hard, and the danger that I see is that if we're not careful, the music industry from a live point of view, which is so rich in this country and is so highly revered, could turn into a playground for the rich, and that would mean that the industry is turning its back on incredible talent, And I got off the plane the other day from having been in Nashville for the first time, and got off after this amazing trip, and saw these huge, I can't remember which terminal it was, but you walk off and all you see is, to welcome in the visitors to the UK, is welcome to England. We are the home of live music, and we are the home of great artists, And then in the back of my mind, I'm also thinking, but this is England that is shutting down music departments in schools, and this is the UK that is unfortunately forcing studios and live venues to shut down, and prohibiting young people from going out and being creative and performing. And you think something's not right.
It's a big problem, but now I've got a big question to counter that. Is what do you think the solution is?
Well, I think we need to look at how things are supported. If we go to Holland, the venues are supported by the government, and the venues are well run, and the venues are open to new bands, and can pay good money for young up and coming bands, drawing in great crowds because they're able to offer a great service to the people coming to see the bands. So I think there has to be some government initiative that helps the smaller venues, and that certainly reinstates all of those, to begin with, all of those music departments that are being shut in the schools. And I think we need to look at the bigger picture.
I had a question here that was later down the list, but I'm going to ask it now because I think it ties into this, and you've probably answered the back end of it, but I wanted to know from your perspective what excites you about the future of music, but also what worries you.
I think the future of music, it is more overexciting than it is scary for me. I mean, I think I was trying focus on the positives, but the access to music that young people have, and the access to being able to make music on accessible equipment, shall we say, is incredible. I think that it feels that musicality through the streaming services that young people have, they're able to dip into so many different genres. I'm amazed seeing the students at the Future Producer Academy, 16 to 24-year-olds, just how wise they are when it comes to their knowledge of music. And that's a cross-section of wholly underrepresented young people from all over the UK. So we get an amazing cross-section of incredible young people on that. So I think that their desire for going the long way around as well is very exciting. I think that there's, in the younger generations, they've grown up so much with laptops and technology that actually I think there is a shift coming where the generations coming through don't obviously move technology to the side, and we'll of course be working with computers, but it's interesting that those pieces of equipment feel like the functional apparatus for making the music. But their desire really is to get into analog equipment and to hear live pianos and record live instruments, which has actually blown my mind, because I thought, I looked at myself and went, am I just banging on the drum of like nostalgia here just because I grew up listening to the Specials and the Clash, that just is like in my DNA. So it's not the case, because I'm not forcing the students to do anything they don't want to do. Like, they're coming to me and telling me, can we record some more stuff through all this analog valve equipment? And so that's really exciting, because I think that AI in taking away so much the mystique, but being able to create these tracks from scratch means that the bar is now set high again, because if you can go onto an app and put a prompt in and create a finalized body of music, then it's like, well, cool, that's great. So we can all do that now.
Yeah.
How do we do something different? And I can immediately, I can feel this wave of human made music coming back, and people talking about getting off the grid, not from a device point of view, but off the grid in terms of a Pro Tools point of view, i.e. not recording to a click, to a rhythm track, like just getting in with musicians and feeling things out. And whether that doesn't mean that we're all going to be part of a kind of rock band. I mean, we're talking like Jay Dilla, how he didn't use quantizing and how he felt so much of his music, and obviously his work then with D'Angelo and Pino Palladino's work and Questlove, and how the Soulquarians worked. Like, so in every genre, I think there can be way more human interaction and human feel. I think as producers, we've taken for granted the fact that we could have potentially been inadvertently making ourselves replaceable by making all these shortcuts for ourselves. And then the final shortcut comes where it's like, well, you know what? You're not coming up with your own samples because you're going here to get the samples and you're going here to get this and that and putting it together. But the app over here can now come and do this for you. So what would stop an A&R person or an artist sitting together and go, that producer over there who, I don't know, had that studio and got a leak in the studio and, has never got any hot drinks or tea and coffee. Like, should we just come up with what your album is based on market research? We could bring in the market research marketing team, put in the search criteria that fulfills it, come up with 12 backing tracks and just record it. Obviously the answer is no, we don't want that to happen. But what are we going to do? Then we have to give artists amazing experiences in the studio and interact, and I'm convinced that the more non-linear signals you can get on a record, so by non-linear I mean analog, meaning that it's not digital, it's not zeros and ones, so that if you see a waveform of a piano, one note is so rich, full of harmonics and different fundamentals and different notes, that if you infuse your tracks with that, they not only stand the test of time, but they provoke a different human reaction. And I know there was a study that was put out recently where a test group of people were played music, AI music, and were played non-AI music, the details of which have not been revealed yet, and I'd love to know what music they were listening to. And I think it was 94% of people couldn't hear the difference. But if you came up with Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, or you played people Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, and then you played people an AI version of Dark Side of the Moon, I think 94% of the people would be able to tell the difference. Wow. And so it to me, it's about getting back to that place, whilst not turning my back on the brilliant advances that are being made, but just being cognizant of the fact that we're humans, and humans need to act together, and we need to be communities, whether it's community in the studio with musicians and an engineer, and that kind of sense of community, and feeding off each other and playing instruments.
So ultimately with AI, and I was going actually to avoid it because I feel like I talk about it all the time, but to be honest, we can't get away from the fact that it's very much here, and it's coming like a big tidal wave. But ultimately with AI, do you see it as a threat or an opportunity?
I think it's an opportunity, and I see it for what it is. It's a simulation. It's I said it on a post recently. It's FIFA versus the Premier League, or the Championship in my case, because I'm a Leicester fan. But I mean, whichever league you sort of frequent, or Sunday five-a-side, or whatever it is, it's a simulation, and it's fine if people can't tell the difference, because whether it's AI music or manufactured music, which is maybe bands, even back in the day with Phil Spector. Phil Spector was creating bands which weren't the bands that we were seeing. So there was some level of simulation there. That's always been the case, and will always be the case, and that's fine. But I'm over here where the real artists are, and I'm excited. I think that AI is a real opportunity for us to really push humanity and push community and push great playing, whether it's on a drum machine. And again, I'm not thinking of becoming a folk artist, as much as I love folk music, but it's not all about that. But with the tools that we've got, how do we make those more human?
Okay, well, we're not too far away from the end, so I'm going to throw a couple of not curveballs, but these are ones that you certainly wouldn't have seen, but they've just come to me as we're going along, like the Godfather of Grime was one of them. You mentioned rap and Public Enemy, and so I'm interested to know who you deem the greatest rapper of all time is.
The thing is, like, these on-the-spot questions,
they're very difficult. I get it. We can cut out all the pauses, but I'm interested to know what your opinion is. Because someone asked me the other day, I'll tell you what my answer was. It was Tupac.
Can you qualify that?
No.
Well, it's just throwing out a name without the qualification.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fair play, because it's definitely he's going to be. Yeah. He's going to be up there. I think, not wanting to sit on the fence, but I mean, how can you mention Tupac without mentioning Biggie?
Yeah,
obviously. But then we're in that realm. But when I think of Kanye, but then I think of Kanye as an artist, and you think of Jay-Z. To me, it's an impossible question, because you think of Wu-Tang. You just
love Wu-Tang.
You think of Dave, and you think of Kano, and you think of Wiley, and you think of Stormzy, and you think of all of our homegrown talent as well. And you just it's an impossible question. It
is a difficult one. I give you that.
Sorry to evade it.
Well, I tell you what. Tupac was my Method Man. I think was, because Wu-Tang was. Well, as a kid, I loved Wu-Tang. Wiley was my favorite UK rapper. I'm answering it for you here, but what I want to do, and there's a few more of these, so we can't sit on the fence with all of them. In terms of artists right now. Pick an artist that is not necessarily a favourite of yours, but just an artist that you're loving what they're putting out there?
So Sienna Spiro. Lucky enough to be in the room with her this week, and just really like the music she's putting out, but her as a person, and that resonance and richness of timbre in her voice is captivating.
Yeah, good one, a very good one. This perhaps is a difficult one, but I would like to know who your favourite artist of all time is.
Just like that. Favorite artist?
I mean,
band, or
it could be, a band act. I'm just thinking, perhaps, there's always that with anyone that's in music. There's always usually that one artist that proper inspired them, perhaps got them into music in the first place. Do you have someone or a group like that?
I mean, Radiohead are always up there for me. And I think at different periods of time, I went through a massive Smiths phase. Favorite artist of all time, I'm not going to sit on the fence, Kanye West.
Wow, amazing.
So obviously not formative years for me, but just the trajectory and the path of his career, and the sonics and the variation between, say, a record like 808s and Heartbreak, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, versus Life of Pablo, or any of the other records. It's mind-bending.
What struck me, Kanye would be one I mentioned, but I have got a massive appreciation for what he's done. And actually, I've seen a lot of these clips recently that are doing the rounds on Instagram and the like, but he's sampling, like where he would take samples from and group them together and turn it into an arrangement. Like when you see some of that old disco songs or whatever it may be, it blows my mind how someone can hear that. So what we're going to move on to now is our final piece, which hopefully, I know you know the answer to this one, but top 5 songs of all time. Fraser Smith, these are your top 5 songs of all time. Number 5.
Number 5. Well, it goes up in. You have a number 1, which is the
number 1. Well, they can be in any order, to be honest.
Okay, so it's not ranked.
That might be putting you on the spot a bit, but if you can, then let's do it.
I don't think it is, but Fight the Power, Public Enemy.
Any particular reason?
Formative years, very early taste of hip hop for me. I remember hearing it at school. Just the energy behind that record.
Yeah.
And what it was saying as well, which I learnt subsequently how, politically charged obviously was. And the sound of it, raw.
Number 4.
Joy Division, Love Will Tear Us Apart again.
Wow.
Why? Why wow?
Because it's a massive tune.
It's got to be massive tunes. It's top 5.
Yeah, no, it's true. True. But sometimes people have sat here and said tunes I didn't even know what they were. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's personal, isn't it?
Number 3.
Paranoid Android, Radiohead.
Mm-hmm. Any reason?
I don't think there's been a record that I've heard ever that I so didn't understand, but I knew I had to listen to it again. Probably after the 8th listen, I was like, wow. I mean, I always knew it was a masterpiece, but I couldn't quite work out what it was. It's almost like it's not modern day anymore, but it was kind of like in when I was 18, it felt like the equivalent of Bohemian Rhapsody or something like that. Yeah. So many different sections and just so emotional.
Number 2.
Number 2. I did think about this. I did write some down. Number 2 is going to be The Long and Winding Road by the Beatles. It was our first dance.
Amazing.
At my wedding, so it's obviously going to be very close to my heart. Maybe it should have been 1.
Well, I was just about to say, like, now number 1 better be a big biggie. So,
Sarah's in the background.
Yeah.
Sarah's in the background, going like this. Can I just say that Sarah was asked her top songs. They were a good list of songs. There's George Harrison songs, and there were some really good songs. A song that wasn't on there was a song called Stars Align, which was a love song that I'd written for her. Say that hurt is a massive understatement.
Okay.
So I'm just saying.
Okay. Yeah, that balances it out a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm intrigued now. Number 1.
Number 1, Bridge Over Troubled Water. Simon and Garfunkel. We had a conversation of this in the split of I was going to say tour bus, but it's definitely not a bus. It's a small van. And we just get into these big like top 10 questions because it's great. It's great fun. And the journeys are long. You know, when you're driving from my house to Holland, it's a long journey and you have a lot of time to talk. Yeah. It's great. And I was having not an argument, but a discussion on this. I thought it was Bridge Over Troubled Waters, and Sweets was campaigning, rightly so, for God Only Knows, Beach Boys. And so, you know, when you get into that realm,
yeah,
I think Molly was like there on Thriller, which again is like, all these calls are great, you know, and I literally haven't scratched the surface of but for me, the story behind that song in that, you know, it's kind of, they thought it was going to be this album track, which you know, was just going to live at the back of the album, and then Arma Ertegun, the great music executive that started Atlantic Records, just came in and really saw the potential of this and how it didn't ever have the outro in it, and then so Paul Simon wrote the outro, and just the emotion and the piano playing, the fact that I think the piano's played by the guitar player, just all this story. I've done a bit of a deep dive on it because I love it so much. I just think it's beautiful, the harmonies between Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel.
Yeah, it's an incredible one. Okay, well, listen, we're at the end now.
Great.
Thank you so much for coming to do this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
This has been 20 years in the making, like I said to you earlier. Great to finally meet you and your amazing wife as well. If we've ever had a music maestro on this podcast, it's definitely been you.
Come on, get away.
Thank you so much, and nice one, Fraser.
Thank you so much. Love it.